Welcome to the Ultimate Life television program, brought to you by Pastor Gracious Selassie Awiye of Treasure House ICGC, where you are treasured and not trashed.
Welcome to the Ultimate Life broadcast. I'm your host, Gracious Selassie Awiye, Pastor of Treasure House ICGC. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 9 tells us that after we've come to Christ, there is more that accompanies salvation. So there is more for you in God. My subject today is you've got more in you. You've got more in you. It will interest you to know that some well-known achievers in history only realized their potential, or some of their greatest potential, in their old age. So let me give you a list of them this morning. Socrates gave the world his greatest philosophy or wisest philosophy when he was 70. And when he was very old, he began to play musical instruments. Plato was only a student at 50, but he did his best after reaching 60. Michelangelo was still composing poetry and designing structures in his 89th year. It was in his late 80s that he laid on his back on scaffolding and painted the roof of the Sistine Chapel. Marcus Pecus Cato, at 80, began studying the difficult language of Greek. Titian the painter completed his painting The Lord's Supper when he was 80, and he kept on painting for years. At 98, he painted the historic Battle of Lepanto. Verdi, the great composer, at the age of 74, produced his masterpiece Othello, and at 80, Falstaff opera, and at 85, the famous Ave Maria. Strauss, the composer, was still composing serious music after his 80th birthday. Podrosky, at 79, was still playing the piano with proficiency to packed houses. Alfred Lord Tennyson, at 83, wrote Crossing the Bar. And Noah Webster did his monumental dictionary at the age of 70. George Bernard Shaw wrote some of his famous plays at 80. Oliver Wendell Holmes, at 79, wrote Over the Teacups. And Victor Hugo wrote Les Miserables at 62. And then a guy called Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was a shipping magnate, he crossed the Atlantic with steamers. He increased his fleet from 100 to more than 10,000. From the time he was 70 to the time he was 83, he thus added to his fortune, 100 million in the early part of the 20th century. So, how many of you realize this morning there is still much more in you? Every one of us has much greater potential. They say we only use 10% of our brains. But Stanford University Brain Institute says after their studies that we only use 2% of our brains. It seems the reason we are doing this, using less and less of our potential, is because we are relying more and more on technology. As technology improves, we rely more on it and less on our own abilities, less on developing our lives. Actually, The world is not improving because of technology. There's still crime, broken relationships, poverty, abuse, and the list goes on. Technology can solve that. Only the development of the human life can, by the grace of God. Technology cannot solve our problems. Only the development of the human life can do that by the grace of God. This is what the National Geographic magazine says about technology. It says that information technologies, for all the attention they receive, lag far behind the power of the human brain. Researchers estimate that the normal brain has quadrillion connections between its nerve cells, more than all the phone calls made in the United States of America in the past decade. I want to tell you this morning that you've got amazing capacity. You've got more in you. And I want us to look at how we can develop our lives, because God has got more for us to be and more for us to do. How many of you feel this morning that there's more that you can be? There is more that you can do. There is more that you can earn. I'm sure there are many of us this morning who feel that there's so much more in us that God can still bring out and develop. But we need to take a certain approach to it. We need to have the faith and the confidence that God can release it. Did you know that God recognized human potential even before Jesus came to the earth? I'll ask the question again. Did you know that God recognized human potential even before Jesus came to the earth? Come with me to the book of Genesis chapter 11. Genesis 11 verse 6. It says, "And the Lord said, indeed the people are one language, and this is what they began to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them." God recognizes that you and I, when we work together and we are right and we are righteous, forgive me, we can accomplish just about anything. But in this case, it was what they were doing was against the will of God, and God came down and frustrated it. But God recognized and acknowledged human potential. And too many of us are complaining, looking into our lives, not trusting God to develop our lives to the full. I want to say to you again this morning that you have much more in you that can still come out. Your brain can function at a higher level. Your life can expand and enlarge. Your life can expand and enlarge. You have more to give and more to be. You are more than you know. Abraham was a person who complained to God. And he said, "Lord, I don't have anything." And let's see what God said to Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, verse 1 to 6. Genesis 15, verse 1 to 6. "After this, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. 'Do not be afraid, Abraham. I'm your shield, your very great reward.' But Abraham said, 'Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus.' And Abraham said, 'You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir.' Then the word of the Lord came to him, 'This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. In other words, don't look at your lack of potential. In you is seed. Seed that will spread across the world. And today, look at the great nations that have come from Abraham. So, let's not complain like Abraham, that God, you have not given me anything. There's a seed in you. So, don't complain. Trust God. You know, Brian Tracy, the motivational speaker, said something. He said, the potential of the average person is like a huge ocean unsailed, a new continent unexplored, a world of possibilities waiting to be released and channeled towards some great good. We've got so much in us, yet so many are unhappy. But the real unhappiness will come one day when we stand in eternity and we realize all we could have been. There is a composer by name Giancarlo Menotti, and he said, hell begins on the day when God grants us a clear vision of all that we might have achieved, of all the gifts we wasted, of all that we might have done that we did not do. Let's not get to the end of our lives or get to eternity with regret. But let's get there having explored and developed and trusted God to be all we can be. Some of you this morning might be looking at yourself and you are saying, I know God has got so much for me, but my life has got issues. I want to give you 5 things this morning. And I want to say to you, God has got so much for you. God has got so much for you. Even if these things are in your life. The first one is, the first point is, we are poor and we have no resources. We are poor and we have no resources. You know, you say, I've got nothing. I've got no potential. I want to tell you this morning that you do. You do have potential as long as you are alive. God has put something in you. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 23. Proverbs 13, 23. It says, much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, and for lack of justice there is waste. So in the ground that's unused, there is potential for food. Even though you are poor, it's right there. God is created an earth with opportunity and potential. You know, Zimbabwe was once known as the bread basket of Africa. The reason is that farming there was producing huge yields. At the moment, it's no longer the bread basket of Africa. Nothing is happening to the soil as such. It's the human potential that has changed. They've removed the white farmers from their farms and put other people there. The same soil is there, but the same potential, or let me put it, the same potential has been lost. They are not using the soil. So what's there in your life that you are saying, the government must help me? No, you can't legislate potential. You've got to use what you've got, where you are, even if you are poor. You've got to make the most of the life that God is giving you. You've got a mind and you've got a body. They did studies in Africa and they examined the soil and found out that 50% of Africa's soil is only suitable for grazing, not for agriculture. But they found the other 50%, which is 9 million square meters, is suitable for developing crops. 8 million kilometers of it is watered. It's called water fed. In other words, it rains on it. Yet Africa is unable to increase its agricultural output by between 3 and 5% a year. The soil is good. The potential is there. But the people on the continent don't see it. Number two, even if life has cut us down, have you been divorced? Have you lost an investment? If you've been through hardship, you've still got the potential to rise up and go forward. If you had setbacks or troubles, don't let that kill your view of your potential. Trust God. I said trust God. You can start again. You can keep going. Oh, let me read you one of my favorite scriptures in the book of Job, chapter 14. Reading from verse 7 to 9. It says, at least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water, I like that. At the scent of water, it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. You know, sometimes a tree puts out more effort to get more nourishment than human beings do. We kind of sit and we say God is going to do it. God says there is some water. Get a whiff of it. Get a whiff of it. Smell it. Get a whiff of my word. Get a whiff of my spirit. Get a whiff of opportunity. And even if your life is completely cut down, it can sprout again. Even if it's been long dormant, even if love has been long dormant, you can love again. We need to believe that our lives are not over until we die. Do not die until you are dead. So don't die before your time. Number three, even if other people don't recognize it, even if other people don't recognize it, sometimes the people closest to you don't recognize your potential. And they put you down. People know where you come from. And they tell you things like, I know where you grew up, you know. In other words, don't try and raise your life. I will bring you to where you are meant to be. No. That's where you start. That's where you start. That's not where you finish. And you need to realize that some people won't recognize your achievements. They will never recognize what you do. Even if you are doing well, you just need to press on and realizing your potential. The Bible says of Jesus that people didn't even recognize him. They did not. John chapter 1, I'm reading verse 45 and 46. It says, Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of David. And Nathanael said to him, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, come and see. Look at Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6, verse 1 to 3. Mark 6, 1 to 3. Then he went out from there and came to his own country, And the disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many hearing him were astonished, saying, Where did this man get these things? And what wisdom is this which is given to him, that such mighty works are performed by his hands? Is this not a carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? So they were offended at him. They were offended at him. It doesn't really matter who knows you. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's where you are going and where you end up. That is what is important. So don't let people who don't recognize you put you off and put you down. You keep developing your potential, because God is got so much more for you in your life. Number 4, even though we are doing well, sometimes you get to a place where you are doing so well that you think to yourself, what more can I do? Look at where I work. Look at the car I drive. Look at the house I live in. What else is there for me? You need to realize that beyond you and your needs are the need of other people, or the needs of other people. You need to realize that beyond you and your needs are the need of other people. Your life needs to expand, not just to meet your needs, but to meet the needs of others. You are not on this planet Earth for yourself. What God has put in you is not just for yourself. God has got something bigger in mind. He has others in mind. There are other people who are depending on you. And if you are doing well, go higher, branch out, try something you have never tried. Otherwise, you get bored, you get stale. You start to become self-satisfied. When you become self-satisfied, you start becoming self-indulgent. When you become self-indulgent like Solomon and David, you become self-deceived. And in the end, he has to start all over again with you. Keep moving up higher, because when you become satisfied, it can put a lid on your potential. Jeffrey Gabrino, the American swimmer and Olympic gold medalist in 1984, said the real contest is always between what you have done and what you are capable of doing. The real contest is always between what you have done and what you are capable of doing. When he won that gold medal, he was at that time studying for a Bachelor of Science. So not only was he developing his physical side, that's his sports side, he was also developing his mind. He was developing his full potential. He went on 4 years later to get an MBA. Don't stop when you become successful. The world needs you at your best. This planet is made better or worse by the people we choose to become. If you live a diminished life, it's not only you who loses, but the world loses and humanity loses. So we need you at your best. Number 5, even when you are surrounded by problems, maybe you are thinking, thank you for talking about potential, but my life is filled with problems. Nehemiah went into a city and he saw problems. Mountains of them. The entire city was destroyed. But Nehemiah saw potential. No one saw potential. No one saw potential. As a result, for centuries, it laid dormant. Then came Nehemiah. He didn't just see the problems, he also saw the potential. And in 52 days, the city was turned around. Come with me to Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6 verse 15. It says, so the wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul in 52 days. So the wall was finished. The wall was finished. So my question to you is, what's there in your life that's lying in a mess? And all you are looking at is the mess. Start seeing the potential. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can come out of it. You'll be surprised how quickly you can get out of there. You can't get back on your feet. You can become emotionally strong. You can become all that God called you to be.
Thank you for watching the Ultimate Life television program. We hope you have been blessed by the teaching. Tune in to our next program on the same channel and the same time next week. You are cordially invited to visit Treasure House ICGC for our Sunday morning church services at the New Horizon Center, South Lodge Avenue, adjacent to the Pollards Hill Library, CR4 1LT. For ministry products and other information, please contact us on 0208 355 3461 or send an email to pastor@treasurehouseiCGC.co.uk. You may also visit our website www.treasurehouseiCGC.co.uk. Our service times are as follows: Sunday 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and Wednesday 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. You can also download our ministry app, Gracious Awaye, to listen to Pastor Gray's messages from the Apple Store or Google Play Store. May God richly bless you.